Hi, everyone. Welcome to the YOUnify podcast. My name is Brandyn Keating. I am the co-founder and CEO of YOUnify, a nonprofit organization helping you flourish and thrive, and the host of our podcast. Today, we're going to be having a conversation about democracy. And when we talk about democracy, a lot of times it's about being in crisis these days. Today, we're going to be talking with someone who is helping organize the people who are determining what comes next. My guest today is Jesica Siles. She is the communication director for Voters of Tomorrow, a Gen Z-led organization that engages young Americans in politics and government. Jessica's worked as a journalist, an educator, an organizer, before combining her interests to use political communications to empower young people. She grew up in Orlando, Florida, but is now based in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm really excited for our conversation, Jessica, about how you became who you are and the exciting work that you are doing with Voters of Tomorrow. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Jessica, I'd love to start just by learning a little bit more about you and who you are. Could you tell us a little bit what young Jessica was like and how you became you?
Young Jessica was a little bit feisty. My mom might say I had a tiny bit of an attitude. But I think from a very young age, I was just extremely passionate. I mean, whether that was about my youth soccer team or clothes, whatever it might have been at that time, I just wanted to do it to the best of my ability and hopefully help other people do it to the best of their abilities alongside me as well.
I can see how you got into organizing and making a difference then. That passion definitely seems to have carried you through. So, here in YOUnify, we care a lot about human flourishing and talk a lot about what helps each of us flourish and thrive. And would love to hear from you one thing that maybe you're challenged by right now when it comes to your own personal flourishing and one thing that is helping you flourish and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is such an important thing to think about. I think one challenge that I'm always kind of struggling to figure out is what is the right balance, right?
Yeah.
Just making sure that I'm taking really good care of myself so that I can show up for other people is always something that feels like it's constantly changing and adapting to what I need in those certain times. One thing that helps me do that is definitely my friends and my family and my larger community, bringing me back down to earth a little bit, making sure that I'm seeing them often and taking care of myself, having a nice home cooked meal every once in a while is really huge and really keeps me grounded for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love those family connections, and taking care of ourselves is so important, especially for folks who are trying to change the world like you are. It can be easy to get stretched thin. So it's great to hear that you're being attentive to that. So what is one thing that might surprise people about you if they maybe only know you from Voters of Tomorrow and your professional life?
Well, obviously, how hilarious I am.
Fair game.
But I mean, I think also just like how many hobbies I have and how many things, outside of Voters Tomorrow that I'm at least trying to do all the time. I think there's sometimes a stereotype of really passionate people in this space that can be kind of intense, and definitely not always, but I think it's nice to let people know that this is not all that I do. And in fact, I think, because I do other things, it makes me better at this and reaching out to people and getting to meet a bunch of different people. So definitely, kind of how much I dabble in other things as well.
Yeah, certainly we need to have some interests and some things going on for ourselves in order to be able to connect with others, right? So what are a few of those hobbies that you are dabbling into?
Oh, not in any impressive way, but I am still actually playing soccer, just recreationally for fun. That's been super good for me. I love to read, love going to concerts, just honestly spending time outside as well, whether it's a park or for a hike. Literally touching grass. They say it's good for you. I love to do that.
Fantastic. So tell us about voters of tomorrow, excuse me. How would you describe what it is that you do at Voters of Tomorrow?
I mean, at our core, we really just try to educate and empower young people. That takes a ton of different avenues, like engaging them
Mhm.
during elections, but also just providing trainings and information and making that easily accessible to them. Do they have what they need to feel like they can make a difference? Whether that's information about their polling place or, joining one of our chapters and having the community to do so with. We just want to
Mhm.
be basically a resource for young people that they know that they can come and get what they need to make a difference.
Fantastic. And what caused you to join Voters of Tomorrow and or stay with Voters of Tomorrow?
I mean, as you mentioned, I grew up in Florida and there just felt like there was a lot going south in some ways. And so I found Voters
Yeah.
of Tomorrow on that chapter level as an avenue where I wanted to make a difference and become more involved. And I think what has made me stay the past few years is how empowering it is to be with a Gen Z led organization. And I think there's a
Mm.
certain authenticity that comes with that, just bouncing on ideas off one another with people that really get it and are really kind of facing similar things as you is really powerful, I think, and I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do together.
And as you work to engage young people more civically with the electoral process, with their communities, what feels important or urgent about building this power among young people to be engaged with creating the policies that affect all of our lives?
Well, I don't know if you've seen Congress recently. um,
Those people, yeah.
Right, but there certainly seems to feel like we are underrepresented, especially on those
Mhm.
bigger scales. It's pretty rare to see someone in their 20s, even their 30s, in some
Yeah.
of these positions of a lot of power. Certainly, that is not the only way to make a difference. But being
Hmm.
able to communicate that to people and to chip away at that still. Is I think really, really important, especially just considering how much skin we have in the game. These are going to be,
Yeah.
that's hypothetically our social security that we is, being threatened to be taken away from us. Our healthcare once we get kicked off our parents' plans. These
Hmm.
are things that are going to impact the rest of our lives. And we need to have a say in them. And we need to be in positions of power to be able to shape our own futures.
And so, thinking about actually reaching young people and exciting them about getting involved, that seems like no small challenge. How do you break through in a crowded media landscape?
I mean, I think it really does come down to authenticity a lot. Are we
Hmm.
talking about things that young people, are genuinely interested in and that genuinely resonate with them? And that's easier to do when they're the same things that you're genuinely interested in and genuinely
Hmm.
passionate about. So I think that is our greatest asset in breaking through to fellow young people. And I don't think that means that other generations can't do that. I think authenticity in general is really seems groundbreaking these days and is really a breath of fresh air. And just being able to talk to young people like a peer, like taking them very seriously, like how important they are as a demographic.
And is there a particular campaign or message that you've been part of crafting that you're particularly proud of that was able to break through in that manner?
I mean, I think anything regarding our past Voters of Tomorrow summit, we've
Mm.
done our big annual event for the past few years now, and this last one in DC over the summer. Coming off of last year, the energy was kind of all over the place, but not only do I feel like we were able to break through the noise a little bit and, garner some actual attention from it, but I think the young people that attended that event had so much hope and we're still so ready to get back out there and organize for November's past elections and already looking ahead to next year, that being able to plan that and shape the messages and the event itself was so rewarding. And I feel like I walked away with so much and learning from those attendees so much as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like we hear so much that the youth are apathetic or they don't care or they just want to burn it all down. And it sounds like you're having quite a different experience.
I mean, I would be lying if I said that, no young people felt that way, but I'm looking, we did a training program at the beginning of this year called 100 Days of Resistance. And what we did was we had primarily high schoolers join these calls with us, and we took some history lessons. Honestly, we looked at past movements, the civil rights movements, women's suffrage, even, all of these times throughout history where things seemed really bad and young people persevered and made progress. And even the last Trump administration, that a lot of these high schoolers don't really remember what that was like. So that was also really refreshing and I think really eye-opening. There's a even younger group of activists now that are seeing what's going on and they're stepping up just like many, many generations have. So do I think that some organizers are burnt out and are concerned? Absolutely. Do I think that that is the majority of young people? And do I think that there is almost a new sub-generation of Gen Z that is ready to take up that fight and, really passionately go for it? Absolutely. So I've been able to remain really optimistic about what I'm seeing on the ground and in our communities for sure.
It sounds like the way in which you're engaging the folks with whom you engage, the young people, is part of that too. From what I'm hearing about how you described your summit and how you're interacting with them, it seems like you're giving real ownership and a real hands-on experience of co-developing the movement. I think a lot of us are now used to just, if we've signed up for an activisty thing, we're used to just getting those terrifying emails that are like, click this or the world is going to burn down. But without that deeper engagement. And it sounds like y'all are engaging folks a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, I would like to think so for sure. I think, and especially I think with young people more so, it has to come from themselves. You have to be doing this line of work because you truly believe in it. So if you don't have that, the work can feel really pessimistic. It can feel even more challenging. So I always like to think that we're not trying to create some new tools that will magically change things or pass just one law that will magically, protect democracy forever, but just helping people realize the power that they do already have and help them find a new sense of optimism about their own power, and hopefully have them go and do the same with their peers. I think that's how you really build a movement and build something sustainable that can grow and last and hopefully make a lot of really important changes.
So that person to person that goes beyond just the staff to a set of volunteers, but then helping the young people really engage their own communities at the ground
Their
level.
families,
Fantastic.
their soccer teammates, their classmates. Exactly.
I love it. And what are some misconceptions or challenges that you face as a communicator engaging youth?
Well, I think that there, especially last year's election, I think there was a sense from some older voters in particular that, I heard this phrase that Gen Z is going to save us all probably too many times than I would like to admit. But I think just understanding that there clearly are some differences, and I think we deserve tailored organizing and outreach. But at the end of the day, we are just people like anyone else. So not putting this crazy pressure on young people that we are the absolute key to shaping this future. It needs to be intergenerational. It needs to be a diverse coalition in every way that's pushing for these change. We have to do it together. Obviously we organize young people, but I'm not kidding. I hope that young person takes their mom to the polls who maybe has not voted in 30 years. I really hope that when we're talking about bringing one another in, it is not just our peers, that it does really grow and become this big tent that we've talked about. So I would say, I guess that's a little bit of a misconception, is that just we're this like monolithic demographic that is going to show up on election day in this huge wave, which we are, but we can't be doing it alone. We cannot put all of our, eggs in one basket.
Yeah, absolutely. Need those intergenerational connections, need those unlikely allies. Creating change is certainly a game of addition. So love that you have that perspective. What are some of the key issues you hear from young people about the most? What are they most concerned about?
I mean, I think on the top of everyone's minds is affordability, but we've done some of our own polling that has, showed that even more so, specifically with young people coming up in this economy. Rent is really high, all these little expenses certainly add up on top of that. And the job market's not doing the best, especially for new grads just coming out of college. Maybe they've spent all this money, taking out all these loans, and they're not feeling like they've gotten a great return on their investment, and they're nervous looking at their economic futures. So by far, that is the most common issue that we hear about and that we talk about, and that young people are really looking for bold and direct answers on. They want to feel a difference in their lives by policies and have campaigns that understand that.
Yeah, and it sounds like those are some issues that can resonate intergenerationally as well. I think we're all concerned about
Yes.
affordability right now. And looking at recent election cycles and youth engagement trends, I know you talked about the younger generation coming, or the younger of the younger generation coming up and being very energized. Are there other things that you're seeing that are giving you hope?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what we saw in New York City, obviously that's close to home for me, but the young people that were able to organize for Zohran Mamdani was so specifically inspiring. I think we saw, in some ways, a kind of new style of organizing that was really first and foremost about authenticity. I saw my local coffee shops, my local bars, really any and everyone who had any sort of platform, no matter how hyper specific it was, use it to try to inform and engage whoever was in that community. So I hope that we can learn from that and take that and apply it. It might look different, but all over the place. This idea of, maybe you have a skate park that you frequent all the time. Maybe it is on a community college campus, but whatever communities you are in, using that as a tool to, again, bring others in and give them the education and empowerment that they need to get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So really bringing civic engagement, making a difference in electoral politics into the fabric of our daily lives, into where we in our communities already are, as opposed to somewhere else we need to go outside. That's fantastic. When you think about Gen Z civic engagement, is there a risk or a barrier that that sort of comes to mind that you're sort of always trying to address?
Yeah, I think honestly, and this is another thing that I would love to see improved for all generations, certainly. But I think that we have found that finding the right information can actually still be daunting for young people. Yes, we are digital natives and we can perhaps be more tech savvy than others, But I mean, some of these government websites with voting requirements, with the different dates for primary, special election, general elections, when you need to vote by mail in, I think all of that information can certainly feel still overwhelming and daunting to navigate. Another frequent case that we get all the time is the college student who's going out of state. Which place
Mm.
do they register? You know, what can they do? What can't they do? So I think that is a very, in some ways, easy to address barrier that is still really prevalent,
Hmm.
though, is just making sure that these things are getting out there in an accessible way. And whether it's making it on their, phone screens or other media that they regularly consume, making sure that they don't have to go out and do a daunting search for it, that it is, in as much as we can, coming to them where they need it in an accessible way.
Yeah. And is there something that you wish more people understood about youth engagement or about democracy generally?
I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but I think authenticity is so important. I think a lot of people think about youth engagement and they're like, oh, I got to go make a silly TikTok. That is not
Yeah.
going to fly. That is not going to change hearts and minds. They're going to be like, why is my grandpa doing this silly dance on my screen?
Yeah.
So I think being true to you is going to resonate and be more effective no matter what that is. Yes, be online, but you don't have to be hopping on trends or trying to be something you're not, because young people are going to see through that immediately. Just being yourself. It sounds corny, but I really think that that is the best way to resonate with people.
Well, and I think it gets lost really easily. I think, well, one of the things I often hear is that people of all generations feel like um, their elected officials oftentimes are disconnected from them. And, I think part of that stems from that idea of a manufactured message or visual or presence or mode of communication that is stepping outside of the just being ourselves. So I think it's good for you to keep reminding of this, to keep reminding us of that over and over again, that authenticity is absolutely the key. And if there are folks listening right now who are thinking, well, I'm a young person and I don't know where to begin to get involved, or I'm a person who would like to help more young people get involved, but I don't know where to begin to do that. Now I know not to make the TikTok that is outside of my personality, but what's just one thing that, like, just anybody sitting who isn't connected into activism, but maybe would like to get more involved themselves or would like to help more young people get involved? What's just one thing they could do to start?
I mean, I think joining a chapter or telling someone you know to join a chapter of Voters of Tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
or a similar organization, just being able to find a community that might be able to hold your hand a little bit and get you the
Mm-hmm.
tools or the emotional support that you might need to kind of start that journey, I think is huge and an amazing first step.
I love that you mentioned emotional support. I think a lot of times it's easy to lose the relational aspect of what it means to come together to get involved in our communities and create change. And relationships are so deeply at the heart of it. So thank you for mentioning that. And for folks listening and watching, if you're watching, we will put all of the links below so that you can get involved with a Voters of Tomorrow chapter and find other ways to get involved as well. We'll also include our links to the Write the Future campaign that we are building here in YOUnify, where you can get together with people in your local community to imagine the hopeful future and take concrete steps for it. So look in the links below for more details on how you can connect with Jessica and Voters of Tomorrow. And also really invite you to start making a difference right now by clicking like and subscribe to help get the word out to more people. So, Jessica, What are you personally excited to work on next when you think about the future moving forward?
Well, I think obviously the midterms are coming up, and I'm just excited to see more young people actually running for office themselves. I think that that is going to be so inspiring, and I think that that always awakes something in others. Maybe they
Hmm.
might be able to see themselves and think about running themselves. So I'm really excited to just see what young people step up and be able to support them and be a part of that next year.
Awesome. And so we've already dispelled the myth that all of the young people are cynical. But if there are some folks out there who are feeling cynical, whether it's Gen Z folks or folks from other generations, is there a message that you would want to send them about why it makes sense to get involved and where maybe the hope might be?
I always love talking about hyper local politics. Even
Hmm.
this past November, I think there were a few mayoral races in different states that came down to less than a few hundred votes. So I always find that some of my more cynical peers I talk to kind of forget how some of these smaller races really do come down to maybe a couple of door knocks, maybe a couple more
Hmm.
people. I always find that really grounding. If I want to go and feel like I am making a difference and see that pretty immediately, I always try to find a city council race, a
Hmm.
local initiative, or something just really, really important to my community, even if that's an issue or a cause to go get involved in. And I almost immediately feel better usually.
Yeah, well, and so much of the public policy that affects our daily lives is actually passed at the local, county, and state level. So it's a really great way to have a tangible impact working with decision makers right in your own local community. Um, And Jessica, our time has flown by here, but I wonder if you would leave us with, one story from the field that has inspired you or sort of encapsulates what Voters of Tomorrow is like, what it means to you.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about some of the organizing that we did this past November, and our Voters of Tomorrow Hampton University chapter did great work during National Voter Education Week, and they
Hmm.
registered a good portion of the entire school to vote in one day of organizing. They, I think it
Wow.
was 300 people or so, and that just made me so proud. And I feel like that energy carried me through the fall. Again, sometimes I think we have this tendency to overcomplicate things and kind of psych ourselves
Hmm.
out, but really getting with a group of people on just one day with some voter registration information, like that can make a huge difference in just a couple of hours. So sometimes going back to the most simplest forms of organizing can really pay off. And that is something that I just love sharing with people.
Oh, yeah, and that really adds up. That's fantastic. Each individual contribution coming together to all of a sudden make potentially results changing change and empower all of those people to be more involved in the process. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jessica. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. Again, all of the links for how to get in touch with Jessica and how to connect with Voters of Tomorrow will be in the description below. So please don't forget to check that out, like and share, and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much, Jessica. Do you have some fun?